Welcome again to the Parent Academy program for tonight, April 13th, 2022. This is part 3 of The Price You Pay for College by Ron Lieber. We are very happy to welcome you and excited to get the discussion going for our last installment of the Parent Academy. I am Robin Marath, the Career and College Admissions Specialist here at Maine South. I am joined by Dr. Melissa Peichel, our Associate Principal for Student Family Services. So we welcome you to tonight's program. And as a treat for you, you will not just be listening to me as in the previous 2 installments. I do have the pleasure of bringing 3 guests to the program virtually. They have been talked to. We pre-recorded some interviews, but I'm excited for you to hear from some other experts in the field and to bring this a little bit more closer to home and relevant to Maine South and our families with the experts that we'll be talking with tonight. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. In this last installment, it covers chapters 21 through 35, which is a lot of material, but the whole section is dedicated to money-saving hacks that will tempt you. But I prefer to think of them as strategies and not just hacks. I think hacks maybe diminishes the importance of taking a look at some of these opportunities in order to really invest in and receive that ROI on the college investment. So we will be talking about in depth about 3 of these main strategies and then talking about some additional ones. And then when we get to the discussion point, we can discuss other ones that maybe I didn't go into as much detail if you have questions about those. But the first one that we're going to talk about is the community college. And just as a little bit of a perspective, about 20% of our graduating seniors, pretty much from the last 5-10 years, have or do attend Oakton Community College. We also have students who attend Triton. So depending on where students are located in terms of their address will determine which one is their home community college. Both schools have excellent programs. I just happened to reach out to Michelle Brown, who's the Director of Admission and Enrollment at Oakton Community College, because that is where the majority of our students do enroll. And she and I had a great conversation. I will tell you that it has been condensed for time. We talked for about 30 minutes, so I wanted to get that down so it wasn't the entire presentation. So you'll see it's a little awkward. I had to do some editing and cutting, so I definitely won't be quitting my day job and going into film and video editing. So hopefully you can kind of look past some of those awkward cuts and really listen to what Michelle has. She's just a wealth of information and provides great insight into the value of a community college. So I'm going to go ahead and play our interview for you now.
We're here with Michelle Brown, Director of Admission and Enrollment at Oakton Community College. So welcome, Michelle, to our book discussion. So we're going to go ahead and get right into the questions. So if you could start off by just describing what are the benefits of attending a community college?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. We get this often from our parents and students. And what we tell them is what we hear from our students when we survey our students. And what our students tell us is that they attend Oakton Community College really for 3 main reasons. The first is to save money. With tuition being only $136 per credit hour, which is less than $3,000 per semester for full-time enrollment, it's one of the best bargains in college education that you can find. So to save money is the first reason many of our students come to Oakton. The second reason is to explore different majors and career opportunities. Many high school seniors don't know what they want to study in college or what they want to do as a career yet, and that's okay. And we're an excellent opportunity for students to come and try different subjects and different career paths to see what they really like. The nice thing is for students that want to get a bachelor's degree or higher, the first 2 years of college is pretty similar with a lot of general education, and that general education can be taken at Oakton. The third reason that many of our students tell us they come to Oakton is because they want to stay close to home. So many of our students have family responsibilities, or they work, or they're involved in their community, and they want to continue that after high school. And so to come to a local community college allows you to save money not only in tuition, but also by living at home, and then also to stay connected with your community and your family.
Right, and those are all great reasons and very similar to what I hear when I'm working with students at Maine South. Do you have statistics on the number of students who started Oakton and then transferred to a four-year college or university and then earn their bachelor's degree, 4 years or even 5 years?
Yeah, great question. We're just starting to gather statistics from the National Student Clearinghouse that shows students from high school and their continual path from a community college and then to a four-year and graduation. But the numbers I can share are about the students that come to Oakton from the Maine district and those that graduate and transfer from Oakton. We don't have full numbers about completion from the bachelor's degree program yet, but we're starting to gather those more through the National Student Clearinghouse. So Oakton has approximately 6,300 students enrolled. And of those students, about 60% of them are in transfer programs and about 30% are in career programs. The difference is a transfer program, which tends to be the most popular for our Maine students. A transfer program is taking 2 years at Oakton and getting an associate degree, and then transferring to a four-year institution for 2 more years for the bachelor's degree. There's 4 different associate options for students. They can do Associate of Arts, Associate of Science, Associate of Engineering, of Science and Engineering, I'm sorry, and Associate of Fine Arts. So those are the options for transferring, and that's the majority of our students that come from the Maine district. And then the career programs are for students that want to do something short-term, either a semester or sometimes up to 2 years, that will help prepare them to go into the workforce. So 30% of our students do career programs, meaning they can do 1 semester of, say, a phlebotomy program and work in a lab drawing blood, or they can do 2 years of a nursing program and work as a nurse. And then about 10% of our students are totally undecided, meaning they don't know what they want to do, or maybe they're a visiting student just taking 1 or 2 classes. So that's a little bit of the breakdown of our population. As far as the transfer and completion numbers, about 50% of our students go on to transfer to a four-year institution or complete their degree or certificate at Oakton within 3 years. Now, I mentioned before, it's usually 2 years full-time at Oakton to get the associate degree, but many of our students work. So over 60% of our students are working while they're going to school, and that's why it takes them longer. So students have choices. They can go full-time and complete sooner, or they can work. The other numbers I wanted to share are the numbers from the Maine district. So we get a large number of students from the Maine high schools that come to Oakton every year. It's actually one of our biggest feeder high schools. And also I know that more students come to Oakton from the Maine high schools than any other single college. So it's nice to know that when you come to Oakton, you will have some familiar faces in the hallways in the classroom. But since we are over 6,000 students, it won't be like you're just doing an extension of high school. You'll meet a lot of new people. We get about 90 to 160 students that come from the Maine high schools that come to Oakton every fall directly after high school graduation. That's about 15% of the graduating class from Maine South and a little over 30% from the other Maine high schools. So a large portion of students that come to Oakton. Also, we have students that come to Oakton during the summer to take a summer class in between their four-year experience. And occasionally we have students that come back to Oakton after they go away to a four-year school when they realize that it might not have been a good fit for them and they want to come back home, but not have a break in their education. So they take classes at Oakton. So that's a little bit about the transfer and the enrollment numbers at Oakton.
That's great. I think some parents and families are a little surprised when they hear some of those numbers. So we send the most number of students from all of our graduating classes within the last 10, 20 years. I've been here for 4 years and it's definitely been that way, that Oakton's our largest sector of students. So could you talk about articulation agreements? Because I know that there's always questions about starting at the community college and then like, what if those credits aren't accepted by a four-year college or university?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I know a lot of our families ask. The nice thing is any student that comes to Oakton will be assigned an academic advisor at Oakton. So that academic advisor will help them planning their courses and make sure that if they want to transfer, the courses they take will apply towards transferring to their degree and or four-year institution they want to transfer to. So one of the really nice things about being in the state of Illinois is we have an agreement. The state of Illinois has an agreement called IAI. It stands for Illinois Articulation Initiative. And what IAI is, it's an agreement between the community colleges in Illinois and over 100 different four-year institutions, participating colleges that are part of IAI, which basically says if you take your first 2 years at a community college and get your associate degree, you can transfer to a four-year institution. You need to meet their transfer requirements, which are usually only based on your community college GPA, not on your high school record or any test scores. But once you meet those transfer requirements and you have that associate degree, your first 2 years of your lower division courses or your general education goes to the four-year school as a package. And so you're going in as a junior, which guarantees that you only have 2 more years to complete and graduate. Now, there are some nuances to that if you want to do a double major, major minor, or if you're going into a very selective or unique program, maybe like engineering or architecture, there will be some lower division math and science classes you may have to take. But like I said, your academic advisor at Oakton can help you through picking those courses. So Oakton has over 30 different guaranteed admission programs and transfer partners with area schools like Columbia College, Elmhurst, Lake Forest, Marquette. We even do transfer agreements with out-of-state schools like Arizona State, North Michigan University. So a lot of opportunities for students, public, private, in-state, out-of-state. The top schools that our students transfer to are local. University of Illinois Chicago or UIC, Northeastern, DePaul. Those are the 3 top transfer schools for our students. And then a close fourth is University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, which isn't local, but is in Illinois. And then after that, there's really about 600 different schools in and out of state that our students transfer to. So those transfer articulation agreements are just in Illinois. So if you know you want to stay in Illinois, that makes it a little bit easier. But if you want to go out of state, you can certainly do that. And like I said, the academic advisor that you'll be assigned to, you will just talk to them about what your plans are and they will help you plan your schedule accordingly. Every four-year institution has a transfer admission counselor in their admission office that can help also in guiding students through the appropriate classes and the admission requirements for transfer students. So a lot of support, a lot of opportunities. You don't need to know what you want to major in or where you want to go, but if you know that, then we can plan accordingly. If you don't know that, it's good to know if you want to be in-state, out-of-state, if you have an area of interest that you want to go into, whether it's STEM or liberal arts. All those things are helpful in doing the articulations, but very, very smooth transfer for our students without issues. So we're really happy to see that our students are not wasting time. They're taking classes that apply towards their degree.
So I understand that Oakton has an honors program, which I think a lot of people don't realize. Could you talk a little bit more about the honors program?
Oh, I'm happy to. Thanks for bringing that up. There is some stigma with community colleges that community colleges are less than four-year institutions. But ironically, we see many four-year college students take our summer classes and tell us, give us feedback that they're really surprised at how challenging the classes are. So we like to think of ourselves not as less than, but as a great bargain for students with a similar education that they would get at a four-year institution. And so the honors program is an opportunity for students that are strong academically, and if they want to continue to be academically challenged throughout their college career, it's a great opportunity to start in our honors program. And in order to be a member of our honors program, students need to have a 3.5 GPA in high school or a 25 ACT or 1200 SAT to apply for honors. Now, if you didn't have that high of a GPA in high school or that strong of a test score, that's okay. You can still become a member of our honors program. You would just have to wait until you finish 12 credit hours at Oakton, which is about one semester full time. And if you have that 3.5 GPA at Oakton, you can then join our honors program. And so multiple opportunities for students to join. Any student that doesn't meet the GPA or the test score that is still interested, we do make individual selection based on interviews with the honors program coordinators. So if you really want to join honors, but you're a little below those requirements, don't be discouraged. You still have an opportunity. And the benefits of the honors program, not only will you be taking honors classes, which are accelerated classes taught by honors faculty, but you also have opportunity to do research or to participate in additional seminars or have a faculty partner that can actually help you with your goals at Oakton and beyond. Our honor students all take 18 credits of honors courses. And once you complete those 18 credits of honors courses, you get the honors program scholar designation on your transcript. But you can be a member of the honors program at any time. If you don't complete the 18 hours, that's okay. You can still be in honors. You just don't get that designation. The reason the designation is important is that is a strong academic mark on your transcript that might open doors for additional scholarships once you transfer from Oakton.
That is good to know. Very, very sound advice. And again, not something that maybe a lot of people are aware of. Which leads me to my next question. So sometimes students come in aware of this program, but a lot of times as I'm talking with students and families, they're not. The Engineering Pathways program is really unique. Can you explain what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. So Oakton has an Engineering Pathways program with University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. And this program was created because if you're interested in engineering and if you've done any research on the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign's engineering program, you know it's a very competitive program and it's very challenging to get into direct from high school. And so because of that, they created the Engineering Pathways, which allows high school seniors to actually apply and get admitted to a guaranteed admission program, which means after 2 years of coursework in Oakton's engineering curriculum, maintaining a certain GPA and certain grades, then you have your guaranteed admission into U of I's engineering curriculum. I have it pulled up on the website so I can share with you some of the requirements. It's a 3.5 GPA that's required to maintain at Oakton to be a participant in the program and to continue with your guaranteed admission. And it's a B or better in all of your core engineering classes. And to get into the program, the admission is based on your high school transcript. So the committee is looking at all your grades and in particular your math and science classes and those grades. So taking honors or AP classes will help strengthen your transcript and your admissions. So GPA with the high school classes and then ACT or SAT score if you took it. And then there is a math exam that you have to take called the ALEX Math Placement Exam. It's offered at Oakton. It's free of charge. All students need to take it that want to be considered for the engineering pathways. But it's an excellent opportunity for students that maybe can't get into U of I right out of high school, or we also have a lot of students that can get into U of I, but to save money, go through the engineering pathways and start at Oakton. The first 2 years are paid to Oakton for our tuition, and the second 2 years are paid to University of Illinois.
Yeah, my advice is if anyone's looking at engineering at U of I is to also consider this program at the same time concurrently, because it's a great option to have when you're considering price and admission requirements and standards. And some of our students are enrolled in dual credit courses already at Oakton. I think we have 17 of them, if I'm not mistaken. So can you explain for some of our parents who might have younger children who haven't gotten to that point of picking courses that are potentially dual credit, what that means and what those courses entail?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So dual credit is an excellent opportunity for students to start earning college credit while they're in high school. And dual credit classes are offered at the high school, and they're actually offered through the high school faculty, but it's an actual college class curriculum that's being followed. And so students will get on their high school transcript, their class towards graduation, and they will also be starting an Oakton transcript that they can use when they come to Oakton or when they transfer to a 4-year school. So dual credit is a great opportunity to start getting college credit early. Also, you mentioned about the different certificates and the variety of certificates we offer. We have a lot of stackable credentials, which means students can do a short-term certificate and then keep going and get an associate degree. and have multiple credentials on their transcripts when they graduate. Dual credit's an excellent way to start working towards one of those credentials. The nice thing about dual credit is all the dual credit classes will apply towards your Oakton degree, and most dual credit classes also will transfer to four-year colleges and universities. And I want to also mention there's another way to get college credit early, and that's called concurrent enrollment. So concurrent enrollment, not to be confused with dual credit. Dual credit's offered in the high school. Concurrent enrollment is an Oakton class offered on Oakton's Des Plaines or Skokie campus or virtually, taught by Oakton faculty. Students in high school can take a concurrent class starting this summer as a rising junior, so the summer after sophomore year. And then every term that they're in school, junior or senior year, they're eligible to take one concurrent class if their schedule allows. So if they are not already taking multiple honors and AP, we always tell students focus on your high school curriculum first. But if you have extra time, or if you have a class that you want to try that's not available at your high school, you can do concurrent enrollment. And there's a separate application on our website called concurrent enrollment form that students would complete to take that concurrent enrollment class, which will start, again, their Oakton transcript. So there's dual credit, there's concurrent enrollment, a lot of opportunities to get a head start in college. Also, we do accept AP credit. So if you're in any AP classes, scores of 3 or higher are all accepted at Oakton for credit. And so that's another opportunity to get early college.
Excellent. That's great. That concurrent enrollment, I think, is often confused with dual credit. So thank you for explaining the difference. Okay, our time is almost up, Michelle. This has been great, but I want to ask you one last question. What advice do you have for students and families as they embark on the college search and selection process?
That's a great question, and I feel qualified in multiple ways to answer that because I have a high school senior right now that's finishing the process, and he has 2 older brothers that already went through it. So I've been at it on both sides, the parent side, so I understand what you're going through as a parent, and a professional side. I've been in the business for over 30 years in college admissions, and my advice is always to students. Well, I have so much advice and I know we don't have enough time. So let me focus on 2 things. One is visiting colleges. I think it's so important to visit schools, and you're so fortunate that you live in the Chicagoland area with so many colleges in your backyard. So I'd encourage you to take those visits. Even if your son or daughter is not thinking of going to a school in this area, you can get a feel for what it's like to be on a community college campus, a private school campus, a big public school. And not everyone in the country has that opportunity, so take advantage of that. The other thing that I think is really important is to start talking about the financial obligation of college early on. I am always so disheartened when I hear about students that had these dreams for 3-4 years to go to school that their parents never had any intention of being able to afford. They were never going to be able to afford it, and they never talked to their son or daughter about it. So many families tell me, and so many students tell me, you know, I want to go to this school, that school, this school. They have no idea what it costs, what their family can afford, and what's reasonable. So I would encourage you to start talking about those things early. When you're doing college planning, the financial aspect of a college should be part of the discussion from the start. But don't forget about also all the scholarship opportunities that students have. So it's not just the sticker price. I want to mention that even though we are the lowest cost tuition of any college in the area, we also do have financial aid and scholarships for students. So students will complete the FAFSA like they do any other college for need-based aid. And we have a number of scholarships, including an amazing Venture Scholarship, which actually gives up to $3,500 a semester for students. So that'll cover all tuition and fees while at Oakton. And the students have to be full-time at Oakton. They get the scholarship for 4 semesters or 2 years, as long as they maintain a 3.25, I think, GPA in full-time enrollment. And the great thing about this Venture Scholarship is they can also be eligible to get more Venture money, so that when they transfer to the 4-year institution, they'll have scholarship money at the 4-year institution. So the Venture Scholarship is just one example of many scholarships that we offer And all the colleges that your students will be looking for will have some sort of scholarship. So be sure to talk about finances early and explore scholarship opportunities.
That's great. I feel like we could talk for hours, and this would we would learn so much more. You're a wealth of information. So Michelle, thank you so much for being our guest. And we look forward to continued relationships. And I will mention, we do have an Oakton admission rep who's assigned to Main Sal. So again, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so I did actually cut that conversation short. We did talk for over half an hour. Michelle was very generous with her time and information. So this, there's a lot to dissect. We could probably get more into it in the question and discussion section, but that dual credit concurrent enrollment, even if you're a student or if you're a student watching, even if you're not interested in necessarily attending Oakton for an associate's degree or at all, that's still a way to use the community college in order to sort of get ahead and start earning credit that you can apply toward the college or university that you are interested in attending. So lots of great resources at our community colleges. We're fortunate that we have so many in the Chicago area and in the state that really do provide a lot of great resources and opportunities for our students. Okay, I'm going to transition now to our next slide.
We're here with,
and in this section, I talked to Dr. Bess German, who's the Assistant Dean for the Michigan State University Honors College. And so this was another strategy that the author Ron Lieber talked about in terms of, is it worth maybe an extra investment of money to attend an honors college? What types of programs and resources do they have? And also, is participation in an honors college perhaps indicative of maybe some extra money in terms of some scholarships and things like that? So we're gonna hear what Dr. German has to say about Michigan State, but then she does a really great job of talking about honors colleges in general too.
I'm here with Dr. Bess German, the Assistant Dean for the Honors College at Michigan State University. Dr. German, thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So we are going to talk about Honors College and why they're a good idea to consider, and sort of just kind of tips and showcasing, of course, the Honors College at Michigan State for our families. So I'm going to start by asking you, what is the difference between an honors program and an honors college?
One thing I would say is don't worry about the difference between an honors program and an honors college. Both are established to help high achieving students in the midst of larger universities usually. And the distinctions are sometimes just based on the universities and their particular structures. We have an honors college at Michigan State, but our friends down the road have an honors program at their university that is equally fantastic. And so it really just is about the structuring where an honors program fits in a university. And our program reports to the provost, which is the chief academic officer at the university, where some honors programs report instead to a dean of a college or a dean of a division of a university. So probably too much detail, but go forward and look for an honors program or an honors college in the schools that you're considering.
Well, that's good information, because sometimes students might think an honors college is more than an honors program and dismiss an honors program when they really shouldn't.
Right, I think so.
So give us a little bit more information about Michigan State University's Honors College and what that entails.
Sure. So the Honors College here, we think is one of the oldest honors colleges in the nation, and no one really argues with us about that. So we're fairly sure we're a pioneer in honors education. And I mentioned that just to say there weren't a lot of universities doing honors education when we started back in 1956. And I've been here a long time, but not as long as 1956. But our founders had this great idea that we should give high achieving students flexibility and freedom in the midst of a comprehensive university. And that if we did that, high achieving students would take advantage of that freedom and flexibility. And they would actually do more in their college program and not less. And so We have a program that gives students a lot of flexibility, academic flexibility, which is fantastic for students that have multiple interests and who really want to take advantage of a large university. One of the things that guides us is trying to have those experiences that students look forward to later in college, to give students access to those early, which could include undergraduate research early, or access to small class sizes, maybe even high-level classes outside your major early. We also free our students from all of their standard general education or core requirements of Honors College. So there are some very specific things we do to give students freedom and flexibility, and also put in their reach some of those great things about college early on in the college career. Hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that's great. And that kind of naturally goes into my next question. What are the benefits, which you described a little bit, but if you could even go into further detail, what are the benefits of an honors college versus not being admitted to one or not being a part of one?
Sure, and I think I would encourage your parents to ask this question at whatever honors programs they consider, because the benefits could be different depending on the program. Some programs offer specific scholarships if you're eligible for the Honors College. Others offer academic benefits. For us, the benefits are both academic and structural, research, and class opportunities. So I mentioned the flexibility. That is a major benefit of the Honors College here. A lot of people think of honors classes as a benefit as well. So our students love having the access to honors coursework both inside their major and outside their major. Access to research opportunities. You'll quite often find an honors college is very tied into helping students with undergraduate research opportunities. We have a program that serves students in their first couple of years on campus that pays them for their research experiences. So they work 8 to 10 hours per week, and we pay them for doing that work. That's called the professorial assistantship program. So I think we've been doing that program since 1985. So a long time at Michigan State, but a lot of universities now are developing undergraduate research programs. And so that's just an example of one that we have in Michigan State. So access to honors courses, access to research opportunities. There's quite often a scholarship incentive to be in an honors college. So as you talk about return on investment, being at a great public university, having access to great professors and research opportunities doesn't usually come at a higher cost if you're in an honors college program. And also there are usually scholarship incentives for being in those programs. So those would be some of the benefits I've mentioned. And then, people always ask us about the outcomes of such experiences. I've been talking to our students since it's around graduation time of where are they headed next. And I love to see that our students are as competitive as Ivy League students when they leave Michigan State. They're getting into the same graduate programs. They're getting the same graduate fellowships. And they didn't have to pay the price of a much more selective institution as an undergraduate student. So I love to see that. I love to see our students competitive with the best students in the nation. They are the best students in the nation. So I think that's another benefit.
Is there a living component piece to the Honors College at Michigan State?
There is, though ours is a little different, like everything we do, it's a little different than even other honors college programs. A lot of honors colleges have an honors residence hall where all first-year students might live together in an honors residence. At Michigan State, we really like the idea that our students could be a part of our residential college programs, like our residential science college or our residential public policy college, and be in the honors college, not feel like they're missing out on something. So we have honors floors in 8 different residence halls. So it's a chance to live with other honor students, but it's separate, it's surrounding the university, integrated into all the regular residence halls. We have 21 residence halls at Michigan State, so 8 of them have honors floors.
Great information. Is it harder for certain majors to be part of the Honors College? That's sometimes questions I get. For example, maybe some more competitive majors like engineering or intensive, also nursing. I know I get that question a lot. Is it possible for them to also be part of the Honors College?
Yes, it is at Michigan State. And again, you should check with every college or university you consider. Some honors colleges are just for particular majors, or honors programs just serving particular majors. At Michigan State, we're an umbrella honors program. You can think of us as being able to be combined with any major, any college, any residential program. And that includes engineering, nursing, those things that you mentioned. Students might feel like they're on a very specific path, and maybe they don't really need an honors program, but there are benefits for them too, to do those experiences, to have extra research experiences, and to have the care of their professors and advisors, knowing that they're in honors college too. So yes, a student can be in any of those programs at Michigan State and be in the honors college. And it doesn't make things more difficult. Sometimes the planning needs to be there more than it does for a sociology major, for example, but that's very possible. For example, an engineer at Michigan State would take Calc 1 through 4, and they could meet half of their honors requirements just by taking those 4 Calc classes in honors. They'd be halfway done with completing all their honors requirements just if they took the honors math sequence. So it's very possible, very doable. We also give our students a lot of flexibility in choosing what their honors courses will be. That's not true necessarily of all honors programs or colleges. So that's a question to ask. How does a student do honors work in which classes? And here that's very flexible. They can do their honors courses in their major or outside, which is another reason it works for all majors here.
Great. Is it possible then to get, and you've been great about mentioning just how to approach other honors programs or colleges. Is the honors college a stop on a campus visit tour? Is that possible to meet specifically with either you or someone on your staff?
Yes, we really recommend that. And I recommend that you reach out to our colleagues around the Big Ten and around other universities that have honors programs, because you'll find a great reception usually. And it's a great thing, I'm glad you mentioned this. Our high achieving students usually want more information than is given on an admissions tour or general presentation. And so we're the kind of folks that can help you connect with academic departments, that can give you more specific information about what is it like to be a high achieving student at this university? What does it mean? What benefits does it provide? So yes, I recommend always call the Honors College or email the honors program that you're going to visit and see if they can sit down with you for half an hour. We certainly will anytime. We love to see prospective students and their families.
Of course. So final question, what advice do you have for students and families who are considering adding colleges and universities with honors colleges or programs on their list?
Well, I think that last question was a great one because it segues to get on the campus, meet students. Also, I'm one person, I feel very passionate about the Michigan State Honors College, of course, but I have a whole group of student recruiters and other students who are just excited to talk about Michigan State and what it's like to be an honors student here. And I would really encourage that you not just listen to people like me, but that you also talk to students who are living that experience as an honors student. I think they will give a great response to how are things going? You know, how is the university handling you as a high achieving student? What opportunities do you have? So make sure that you insist to see and talk to students during your college search process. See where high achieving students are going after their honors experiences. So spend some time on the campus. I think that's one of the best things. Talk to students, visit the honors colleges, and then keep an open mind, I think would be my last piece of advice. I can't tell you how many students in my 25 years of working at the Honors College here, how many students have come here looking a little hesitantly at Michigan State because they think that they should be going to a more selective institution and being incredibly surprised at what they find in terms of resources and people and the depth of the experience they can have at a large public university. So don't rule us out, rule us in, and really make some time to come in and check out the options.
Fantastic advice, and I echo that too. Always keep an open mind. I have done over 150 campus visits myself, and I just did one last weekend. I always learn something new. Just when you think you know something, even if just by reading something or talking to people, you always learn more when you step foot on the actual campus. And if you can't do that, there are other ways to visit virtually that we recommend. Dr. German, this was great information. Thank you so much for your time, for joining us at our Parent Academy.
Sure, I'm glad to, and please let me know how I can be a resource in the future.
Again,
I'm here with Dr. Bess German.
I had a great time talking with both of these ladies about the resources at Oakton, at Michigan State, and just in general, in terms of just understanding what the benefits of some of these resources are for our students. The good news is I will be sending out this recording, but I'll also have these recordings separated as well on our YouTube channel. So if you wanted to go back and just watch the community college one again, you could do that without necessarily sitting through the whole presentation. But we're going to move forward. Another strategy that Lieber talks about is attending college abroad, because it is true that there are some international schools, and he kind of focuses a lot on the European options, that they are, or can be, I should say, even less expensive than some of our domestic options. And that might be true in terms of the sticker price, but when we factor in travel, airfare, et cetera, we really have to take a look at that cost of attendance and see if that's accurate. But I wanted to provide a couple resources for you. The first one that I would mention, and I will also send out a PDF of this so that you can click on the links. International College Options is a website that has a lot of information about mostly English speaking universities in Europe. So if students are interested and just don't have any idea of where to begin, this is the first place that I would direct you to, because it does have a really good organization of these types of options for students. They also do a college fair, usually every other year. So I know I attended one pre-COVID at the Rosemont, it wasn't the convention center, but it was a hotel in Rosemont. They usually do a counselor program, and then they do a college fair at night. So stay tuned. I don't think they've announced anything for 2023. I don't think 2022 is on their horizon for them. But if you are maybe a junior, sophomore, or freshman, or have a student who is and would like to check that out, I would just keep this on your radar to keep kind of checking back to see what those dates would be. And then another good place to go to is the NACAC Guide to International University Admission. NACAC is one of the professional organizations that I belong to. It's the National Association for College Admission Counseling, and it helps bring together college admission professionals and high school counselors. We, of course, have the same common goal of helping high school students and college students, when they're matriculated at a particular school, to continue their journey, begin their journey, end their journey. And we are very dedicated to student success and outcomes. So, but this is another great guide, again, kind of using it hand in hand with maybe the ICO website to check out some options. Lieber talks about athletic scholarships and sort of things to be aware of. I think especially at a school like Maine South that has a very robust athletic program, some of our athletes really do have dreams and goals of playing in college, and whatever that might look like in terms of the level, whether it's a Division I, Division II, Division III, or even the NAIA level program, that we do have a lot of students who will go on and become student athletes in college. My advice is, if you're thinking of this, and especially maybe if you have younger children, and even if you have children at the middle school level, is to do the research and really educate yourself about what the process is, or talk to parents who've gone through it. Every sport is different. And I think that's one thing that we could all agree on. They're not all the same recruiting process. And there is a major difference in terms of head count sports versus equivalency sports. So head count sports, examples of those would be men's football, men's basketball, women's basketball, women's tennis, women's gymnastics, and I think I'm forgetting one, women's volleyball. All those are head count sports, meaning a school gets an exact number of scholarships and they can award those number of scholarships as a head count. Equivalency sports gets a set number of scholarships, but they can divide them up among people. So you could have a team that some of the students are on a 50% scholarship or 25% scholarship, but not a full scholarship. So examples of those would be anything that I didn't mention that's not a head count sport, but particularly soccer, men's volleyball, lacrosse for both men and women, field hockey, cross country, track, that type of thing. Those are equivalency sports. Division I and Division II are the only divisions that award athletic scholarships. So if you're looking at Division III schools, which maybe isn't as competitive as Division I or Division II, they actually do not award athletic scholarships. So if someone tells you, oh, my student's going to College X, which is Division III, and they got a full ride for playing soccer, that's not exactly true because there are no athletic scholarships awarded. They may have gotten financial aid or a merit scholarship, but not an athletic scholarship. The Ivy League, although it's Division I, also does not give out athletic scholarships. My advice would be to go to NACAC. They have another great guide. So I mentioned their international guide. They have a wonderful guide for potential student athletes and their families. And then one last thing I'll mention is the NCAA Eligibility Center. You can go ahead and create a free account if you are just interested in gathering information about becoming a student athlete. You do have to turn that free account into a paid account if you are going to enter the chute in order to become a Division I or Division II athlete. And I think it's $90 to create an account because eligibility needs to be determined to make sure that you are eligible in terms of the classes that you've taken, the GPA that you've acquired. And right now they're test optional in terms of testing, but to see if then you're eligible to receive those scholarships. So there is a whole process. That NACAC guide will take you through it. We're happy to work with you as well. Most of our counselors are very well versed in terms of the NCAA eligibility piece. Another potential option for students is the gap year. And this gap year, although it doesn't necessarily provide scholarships, it could be a time where students will just maybe take a job and spend that gap year between high school and college earning money that would help them then with the college expenses. It certainly doesn't have to be. This isn't as popular as it is in maybe Europe or even Australia, where it seems like a lot of high school students automatically kind of go into a gap year or a travel experience. But we do have some resources. These are two that I'm going to show you here, the Gap Year Association and the Go Overseas. So if you want to learn more about what a gap year is, the Gap Year Association website is great for that. And then the Go Overseas one has a lot of different programs that you can start researching. I will mention there is a gap year fair that's held usually every winter. So every January is usually kind of the time that it comes up. So hopefully in January 2023, I believe it was in person this past year. Usually New Trier and Oak Park River Forest High Schools host in-person gap year events. So just kind of put that on your radar as well if you're thinking you would like to learn more about it. Again, not very popular, maybe one or two students that I've worked with in the last 4 years have decided to do a gap year. Military scholarships are another avenue to pay for college. The first type would be the ROTC program. That's the Reserve Officers Training Corps. It's a program offered at many colleges and universities across the country. There are 2-year scholarships, 3-year scholarships, or 4-year scholarships. So students don't necessarily have to leave high school knowing they want to do ROTC. It's something they can they can commit to once they're on campus, as long as the campus has something, has a program. But a lot of times if the school doesn't have a program, they partner with a school nearby that does have a program. So you might see that a lot too, partner schools. But this link here, ROTC programs, will take you to a website that has more information if you're interested in learning more about ROTC. The service academies are another avenue to help pay for college. This is where the government or the academy will pay for your entire 4 years. And then of course there is a service commitment at the end of that. And depending on which academy you attend, could determine how many years that you will need to serve after graduation. All of the 5 academies, I should say, excuse me, 4 of the 5 academies do require a nomination from a state senator, from the vice president. So that is something to also consider. The Coast Guard Academy is the one that does not require a nomination. It follows a little bit more like just a regular college application. We do have a tip sheet for students who are interested in looking at military academies. My best advice is, if this is something that your student is thinking about, that you start thinking about it now, because there does come to be a time where it becomes too late to start the application. So especially if you have freshmen or sophomores, don't wait until junior year to learn about the requirements and the options, or excuse me, the requirements and the standards that need to be addressed before you do the application, because there's a lot of kind of front work that needs to be done, and particularly getting in shape and fitness. We had a student who attended one of the academies recently, or within the last 2 or 3 years, tell me, I said, what's your best advice for students who are considering this? And he said they need to start running like today. So that fitness piece is definitely something that is a component, but that tip sheet has a lot of great advice on it that was crowdsourced from resources and from talking with not only students who've participated, but also representatives from these academies as well. We are going to now talk to Abel Montoya. This is our last interview of the night. Abel is the director, excuse me, of outreach operations at ISAC, which is the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. And he is just phenomenal in terms of the information that he provides and the resources that he's going to talk about.
Well, welcome. Today I am here with Abel Montoya, the Director of Outreach Operations for ISAC, which is the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. So welcome, Abel. Thank you for spending some time with us talking about ISAC. So I'll get right into it. Can you tell us what ISAC is?
Sure. So we're a state agency that basically helps kids go to college. Part of our mission is to provide information and assistance to students to help make their plans after high school, possible, and make those plans affordable and accessible. So that's what we do. We help kids go to college.
And what kind of resources does ISAC provide to our Illinois students?
The main resources that we provide a state grant that's need-based, and that helps students attend any of the 125 or so not-approved colleges in the state of Illinois. But our unit, what we do is the outreach division. We go out and do workshops, we do presentations to families, to students, to talk about the process, how it works, how to navigate it, basically demystifying a little bit and trying to ease any concerns or questions they may have. We also meet with families one-on-one, either at the school, at a library, any public venue, to answer any specific questions they may have. So we provide that guidance, especially for families for whom this is their first child going to college, or it's been a while since they themselves have been in college, because things change over the years, as you know.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll just insert that we at Maine South specifically benefit from ISAC by hosting one of the ISAC core members, Eduardo Baca, and he is here every Monday in our CCRC to help students and families with the financial aid process. And it's a tremendous resource for our students and for myself. We also partner with ISAC for our financial aid workshops that we host every fall, and we host them throughout the district at all 3 of the high schools. So just information for our families who will be going through the process, who have seniors in the fall of 2022, that we will host financial aid workshops with the support of ISAC. So that is just wonderful resources. So thanks for talking about that. So in the book, this is a book study. So The Price You Pay for College, Ron Lieber, the author, advises parents and guardians to create a family financial plan and have the crucial budget talk with their child as soon as possible. So any advice for our parents and families on how to proceed with that budget talk?
Yeah, I would say there's a few things. Number one, have it early. Don't do it when you get those award letters in the spring of the senior year. Do it well before then, because if you wait too long, as a parent, you want to do what's best for your kid. And it's hard to say no to students, especially to something as meaningful as a college credential. But when you have that conversation early, you can be honest, have that frank conversation of what this means for the family, because every family is different. If you're a parent and you have multiple children and you have to put them all through college, you have to plan as to what that means for you and your family. If you're a parent that maybe is a little bit older like myself, who may be a little bit closer to retirement at the time your child is going to college, what does that mean for your retirement plans? So every situation is different. There are some families for whom taking out a parent plus loan where the parents are responsible for the loan is more viable than for other families, because loans and as you may know already, they're not dischargeable in bankruptcy with very rare exceptions. So these loans have to be paid back. So having that conversation and being frank, and also having a conversation of what you expect from the student, what they are going to contribute to the equation, whether that means working, whether that means putting in the effort to do scholarship searches, whether they're going to be, having some type of on-campus position. I mean, there's a number of different factors, but it's a two-way street. And being honest, having that early makes the decisions later on in senior year a lot easier.
Great advice. How about advice for families who may say, we make too much money, so we won't qualify for financial aid?
Well, usually I start off by saying, well, that's great that you make a lot of money. That's fantastic. A lot of people like to be your situation, but I know exactly what they're saying. And I kind of reverse that question by saying, well, if you think you make too much money and you don't fill out the form, you're basically telling the college, I'm just going to write a check for the full cost of attendance. And if you can do that, all power to you. Right now, what I would encourage families is take the 40 minutes, 45 minutes, half hour, whatever long it takes to fill out this form, because there's some money that's not need based. For example, the unsubsidized direct student loans. That's a loan that's given to a student that has a number of benefits, such as being able to get into some type of forgiveness program, or if the student has difficulty later on with paying his money back, they can get into income-driven repayment program. But that you have to get that through the Department of Education. You have to fill out the FAFSA. That's one thing. And that's for everybody, regardless of their income, right? The other piece is the work study. You'd be surprised how many students qualify for work study positions on campus, regardless of the income of the family, especially at the private liberal arts colleges that have a very high cost of attendance initially. So you could qualify for those things right off the bat. So I think it's worth the effort. And many colleges will say, we still want you to fill this out. And the reason they say that is because they want to make sure you've exhausted all avenues for money before they dig into their pockets and give you some institutional aid. So it may be the condition or the requirements of the college itself. So it's worth the effort, in my opinion.
Definitely. And I also always like to tell parents, you just never know in terms of what situations may confront your family. I mean, we've seen in the last 2 years a lot of changes in employment and changes in salary, in the health of parents or guardians that can affect the financial aid. And so I always say it's a safety net, because if something does happen, that FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, is at least on file in case.
Well, that's a great point, because if a crisis happens or an emergency happens, you're going to be all over the place, and now you have to go and fill out the form that you could have done earlier on. So it takes away one step. And the other thing too is, for example, for the state award, the MAP award, if we ever run low on the state grant, we will look at the date the application was submitted to determine who gets it. So if you wait too long, you may not qualify for the state grant, so you may miss out on certain monies. The work study money that I mentioned earlier, it's a limited pool, so they only give it to a certain number of students. So if you didn't fill out that form, you may miss out on that. So getting it done, you put it in, you have it there in case something does happen. And that's the other great topic of extenuating circumstances. When a family does encounter extenuating circumstances, communication is key. Communicate with the college to explain your situation, to let them know that the current economic situation is not reflective of what it was in the past. And they will take that into account. They may ask for additional documentation, but the key thing is to communicate so they're aware of that and they can adjust any financial aid offer accordingly.
Right. And I'll add also that it's a graduation requirement for the state of Illinois to either file the FAFSA or a non-participation waiver. You can always say no to the loans, correct? If offered only loans, parent and families can just not accept them.
That is absolutely correct. When the loans you either accept or decline, and you'll be offered different types of loans. And you know, the philosophy for me with loans is only borrow what you need and no more. All right. For many families, it's the reality situation. They may have to take out loans, but hopefully the students take out the subsidized direct loans, which have a lot more benefits.
So that's a good segue. So when families and students receive their award letters, and there's that gap, right, where loans are necessary in order to pay if they choose to attend that school. What's the difference between student loans and parent loans, kind of in a nutshell? Because I know there's a lot of difference in technical terms and things like that, but maybe a good overview.
Sure. The difference, there's a few. The first is the interest rate. The interest rate for student loans are lower than the interest rate for the parent plus. For example, for the current year, the student loan interest rate is 3.73%. For the parents, it's 6.28%. So it's almost 3 percentage points higher. That's the first thing. The other thing too is the repayment period. Okay, for the student loans, they make repayment begin 6 months after student falls below half-time. Basically, hopefully they fall below half-time because they're graduating from college. For the Parent Plus loans, they have to begin repayment 60 months after the amount is dispersed for that year. Okay, so if you're taking out a Parent Plus for 4 years, after the first year, 60 days after the full amount for the first year is dispersed, you have to make payments on that. So those are the main things with that. Oh, I'm sorry, I almost forgot the most important one. The student is responsible for the student loans, and the parent is responsible for the parent loans. Okay, so as a parent, if you sign for it, you're acknowledging that you are responsible for paying it back, not the student. So those are very important details when you're thinking about what makes sense for your specific situation.
So I know that some of our families just, are gapped, meaning that the full price isn't, they're not receiving scholarships, merit aid, grants, et cetera, to cover the full costs, and they'll look to private loans as another way to help out. So there are government loans, but then they may need to actually, because it is capped, right? And what is it capped at again?
For the students, the limit is $5,500 for the first year. The second year, $6,500. The third year and beyond is $7,500 per year. For the Parent Plus loan, it's a formula. So anytime you get a formula, you got to proceed with the cost. So say the cost of attendance is this much, right? And you have a family can afford this much. Then you put in the grants, any grants they may receive, any work study, any direct subsidized, any direct unsubsidized. The remaining gap is what the limit is for the Parent Plus. Okay, so that's how the Parent Plus loans work versus the student loans. Now with private loans, as you mentioned, you got to read the details, right? With the Department of Education loans for the students or parents, the interest rate is fixed for the lifetime of the loan. It will never go up. With private loans, it may be variable. It may go up, it may go down. So take that into account. For the Department of Education loans, there is no cosigner. The student's responsible for the student loans and the parents responsible for the parent loans. Alternative loans, you may need to have a cosigner. Okay. So that means if the original person, if the person took out the loans, this defaults, it goes on the cosigner. So that's really, really important. And the other thing, which for me, I think is probably the most important, is if something happens, with the financial situation of the students or the parent, with the Parent Plus loans and even student loans, you can get in some type of income-driven repayment for the Department of Education loans, where they look at your income and your monthly amount decreases based on that. Alternative loans, they don't qualify for those type of repayment programs. Department of Education loans can also qualify for loan forgiveness programs. Alternative loans, rarely do they ever qualify for any loan forgiveness program. It's the details. Find out what the details are of that loan, the repayment options and whatnot. Heaven forbid, a student or parent dies while they still owe this loan. With Department of Education loans, in most cases, it's just erased. With alternative loans, it goes on the cosigner. Okay, so those are some very serious and important details when you pursue those alternative loans. So just proceed with caution, I would say.
Right. 'Cause some loans are okay, but not all loans are created equal, right? Definitely not here as financial planners, but just as counselors of just making sure that you have all the information before you make that big decision. Is it ever too late to set up a 529 account? So in the book, there's a lot of talk about 529s, which some of our parents may have already set up, but for those who may not have had the opportunity to or weren't aware of them, is it ever too late to do that?
Personally, I'd say probably not, but it depends on the situation of the family. This is where you talk to your financial planner and financial advisor to see what makes sense for you. And the reason I say probably not is for a number of factors. Number one, it could be used for undergraduate or graduate or professional studies. So if you have a student who's going to go on to graduate professional school, you could start a 529 plan to help, pay with those costs post-baccalaureate, okay? That's the one thing. The other thing too is with 529 plans, you can change the beneficiary within certain parameters. So say you start a one-off for your student and either you don't use it all or for whatever reason you want to transfer another beneficiary, you can, like a grandkid, so it can earn interest. And the reason why you need to talk to your financial planner is just because it's an investment vehicle. It's like a mutual fund. It can go up and can go down. So if you try to start one right as someone's going to college, you could lose value in the plan. Okay. But that being said, every state has a 529. 529 is the IRS code that says this is a savings account that's going to grow tax-free, so you don't get charged taxes on the interest. That's the crux of the 529 plan. If in the state of Illinois, there are two main ones: the Bright Start and Bright Directions. So if you invest in the state of Illinois plan, which is through the Treasurer's Office, not our office, through the Treasurer's Office, you lower your tax liability to the state of Illinois, which means you could either pay less in taxes or maybe get a bigger refund. So that's that additional benefit that's not translated into the value of the plan, but that comes in the back. So that's why for me, I say, maybe not too late. I mean, my sister, she's in graduate school. She did it because she bought her laptop with it. She knew she was going to have a major expense. She bought her laptop. She made $10, I think, or $20 on her investment. It was very minimal. It was like $200 or something like that. And I said, well, you still made more than if you would put it in a savings account. But that's why you need to talk to financial advisor to see if it makes sense for you. But keep it in the back of your mind for if you become a grandparent. It's a good way to kind of start your grandkids on the right track.
Right. It's a great gift. College fund makes for great holiday gifts, birthday gifts, etc. So that's a great point.
Oh, that's an excellent point too, because if you're worried about the value going up or down, you can send the link to your family members, and so they can contribute directly to for their birthday gift to the plan itself to help your child. So I mean, I love them personally. I have one for my niece and one for my nephew, and obviously one for my son because I like my son too. But you can open them for whomever you wish. They don't have to be your blood relatives. As a matter of fact.
So 2 more questions, Abel. What is the biggest myth surrounding financial aid that you would like to bust right now?
The biggest myth or misconception is I'm not going to get anything. That's the one thing that I hear all the time. And this is where I tell them about the direct student subsidized, on the loans that they get. That's given directly to the students. I mean, that's the number one. And then there's also some families who think, my child doesn't qualify because, my status as a parent, I'm not a U.S. citizen or just member resident. It's all about students. It's all about students because the philosophy of the Department of Education is that the student is primarily responsible to pay for his or her education. So it's all about student eligibility. And then they ask for parental information to get an idea as to what the family situation or dynamics is. to kind of get a feel for, all right? The other thing too is, they're going to say, well, they're going to look at all my assets, going to look at my, that all that I have, and they're going to take it all away, paraphrasing here. No, people forget that there are things that are excluded from the FAFSA, which are the value of the home in which you live. So that's not considered an asset. The value or retirement, so your IRA, your 401k, your pension plan, the value of those plans are not considered assets for purposes of FAFSA. If you're a business owner, it's family-owned business, you have 100 or fewer full-time employees, that's not considered an asset. So there's a number of things that are excluded from it. So when you start looking at those, start peeling the layers, you can see that, hey, maybe I do qualify for something. And then also the last thing I told families when they get in a situation like, well, I don't know if this is worth it, I'm not gonna get anything, they get upset, and I understand where they're coming from. I tell them on the back end, you may qualify for the American Opportunity Tax Credit or the Lifetime Learning Tax Credit. It's a credit for which parents can receive if they contribute to qualified educational expenses for a child or a dependent they may have. And it could be up to $2,500 depending on how much money was put forward. And this could be not just money out of your pocket, but loans you actually took out to pay for your child's education. So financial aid is more than just the FAFSA. There's other layers associated to it because ultimately navigating this process is kind of, you got to pull all these pieces together to get to that endpoint. And from our perspective, our role is to help inform families of the situation, to help navigate the process so they can make an informed decision to see what works for them. Because every student will have a path that works for them, but there's no one path that's right for everybody. So it's all a matter of what makes sense for your specific situation.
Yeah, very sound advice. Financial aid, which, like as you said, it encompasses a lot of different things, and part of that is scholarships, right? So, and there's scholarships that could be awarded through the college themselves. There's also outside scholarships. So when it comes to scholarship search, what mistakes do you see students make that we can help them avoid now?
Sure, 3 come to mind. The first one is that they stop looking after high school. They're all gung-ho senior high school, then they stop looking. They get in college and they're like, they don't do any more scholarship searches. There are quite a few scholarships for continuing college students. And in some cases, you have to have a college GPA to even apply for the scholarship itself. So don't stop looking. That's number 1. Number 2 is I see students apply for these big national scholarships, and they forget to look locally. And the reason why it's important to look locally is because when it's a local scholarship, it's a smaller applicant pool. If a smaller applicant pool, your chances of getting the scholarship are much higher versus a national one when everyone across the USA is applying for that. And then the last thing is they overlook the small scholarships, those $100, the $200 scholarships. They're like, it's not worth my time or effort to do that. But those little ones add up. And oftentimes they may be also local, which means that they don't have as many applicants for them. And I joked around with students when I talked to them. I said, if you saw $50 on the floor, would you not stop, make the effort to pick it up, put it in your pocket? Of course you would. So why wouldn't you spend that hour to fill out a scholarship, perhaps to get you $50 or $100? So in some cases, it doesn't even take you an hour. So don't overlook the small scholarships. So those are my advice when it comes to scholarships.
That's wonderful advice. And as the scholarship coordinator here at Maine South, I can attest to the fact that there are not as many applicants for those local scholarships as you would think. So like the Park Ridge Rotary Club, the Niles Chamber of Commerce, etc. There are ones out there that often the person in charge of the scholarship for that organization will contact me and say, Robin, we only have 1 or 2 applicants, or sometimes no applicants. We have a scholarship database that we maintain for all 3 high schools, and it's a great resource that doesn't go as utilized as we wish it would. So I agree with you on those scholarship mistakes to avoid. Local is better for scholarships in this case, for sure. Well, those are the questions I have for you, Abel. Thank you so much for spending time with us, talking about ISAF and its resources and just financial aids in general. I will have your contact information at the end of the presentation for students and families who want to reach out. But thank you again.
Oh,
Welcome today.
Okay, lots of information there too. And I could have talked to Abel just as long as I talked to our previous guest, because he just has so much great information to share. One thing that I will put a little bit of an asterisk on, he mentioned that the home value is not taken into consideration on the FAFSA, and that is absolutely true. However, there are some colleges and universities that require a secondary financial aid form. We talked about it, I think in session 2, it's called the CSS profile, may have been session 1. But the CSS profile is a secondary financial aid form that not every college requires. None of our state universities do, but they tend to be more selective, smaller liberal arts schools, and then mid-sized to larger private, highly selective schools. So like a Northwestern or University of Chicago will require that, and home value is taken into consideration in that secondary one. But if you apply to schools that don't require the profile, then your home value is off the table, as Abel mentioned. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit more about merit aid. So great resources. I wish there was a searchable database of all the merit aid that's available at every college and university, but it just doesn't exist. But the next best thing I have is this domestic merit aid chart. And so, like I said, I'll send you the PDF. This chart will take you to about maybe a couple hundred schools and show you what types of merit aid is available. And the average merit aid that is awarded to students who are non-need based. So that's where a lot of our families are coming from in terms of, we're not going to necessarily qualify for financial aid in terms of need-based aid, but we also don't and can't afford $75,000 or $80,000 a year, which is what some of the cost of attendance is for some of these schools. So where are the schools that offer merit aid, and what's the average award? So that's a really good kind of shopping guide, if you will, that I often give to students and families as they're looking at this. Again, it doesn't have every single school, but it does have a lot of them that our students are looking at. At this point, we're in mid-April, and our seniors have been receiving and hopefully have received all of their financial aid packages, or financial aid award letters, as they're sometimes called. And this is where we get a lot of questions about, can we appeal aid? And so Lieber spends a lot of time talking about this in the book. You can absolutely appeal the aid, but he does give you some guidelines in terms of just sort of calibrating your intentions and your perspective. So just to recap, the first thing he says is you have to be realistic. You can't expect to go from getting your award letter that may not be what you wanted and may not contain any merit aid to all of a sudden getting like a full ride or a full tuition scholarship. You just have to be realistic with what the expectation or what the outcome that you're looking for. It's really important to give relevant updates. So for example, maybe there has been an updated transcript since you've applied, because a lot of our students apply in the fall and they don't need a second semester, in the fall, and they don't have a first semester grades or first semester transcript from the senior year. But maybe now there's new grades, maybe there's new test scores, maybe there's new leadership experiences, new clubs, activities, maybe there's awards that have been won, but relevant updates are really helpful to your cause, because just saying you want more money doesn't usually go very far. So there has to sort of be a reason for that. It could also be that you've gotten an award letter from a comparable school and you want to tell them that, look, our student was also accepted to this school, which is very comparable in size and scope, mission, etc., and they were awarded maybe $5,000 more a year. That's a relevant update too, but you can't necessarily compare a public school to a small liberal arts school. Sometimes that comparison is like apples to oranges, and so it needs to be relevant and applicable to the college that you're trying to seek more award money from. And then you want to be specific. Just saying you want more money sounds good in theory, but you need to be specific. How much money? And I would put it in writing and maybe have those relevant updates, examples, etc., also ready to go. So you can absolutely appeal. We recommend that students make that initiative, but perhaps having a parents or guardian sitting with them to answer questions about the financial aid situation that maybe they're just not privy to or don't know enough detail on. But having the student initiate it is really important, because the student is then going to be the one on campus who's going to have to deal with the financial aid office for the next 4 or 5 years to come. We also have a financial aid appeals tip sheet, and that link will also be sent to you. There is a free site called Tuition Fit where you can actually upload award letters. They redact all personal information, so name, address, and anything else identifying who the student is. And then you can see that a student with a similar academic profile who applied to the same schools, what types of awards they receive, so that you can see if maybe your award is similar or not. So that might be a relevant update that you can use too. So it's a relatively new website. It is free for their basic kind of platform, which is to just kind of compare different financial aid award letters for similar students. There is an upgrade. I don't necessarily recommend doing that, but just to kind of warn you that of course it is a website that that isn't everything is free. So, but I would say stick to the basic if you're interested in looking at it. But there's some more information and a video explaining kind of what the idea and the mission behind that is, so that you can take a look at that too. Here's the contact information for a guest that I spoke with. So if you're interested in learning more or reaching out to them, you can certainly do so. I mentioned that we do have an Oakton rep. I should have put her name up here. I can include that in the emails that I send out. Carolina Schwartz is her name, and she can be contacted as well. So she's assigned to all the main 207 high schools. But I think we had a lot of great information. At this point, I'd like to open it up for questions or discussion items that you'd like to have. So you're welcome to unmute yourself or just type in the chat box if you prefer to ask questions or comments or anything that you would like to discuss, whether it's from the last section of the book or the book in general. And I know it was a lot of information to take in, and you might just be thinking of where you are right now. And I would say that wherever you are, if you have freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, I think really the overall advice that I would give from reading the book, talking to my guests, is start early and know what the cost of attendance might be. Use those net price calculators. We talked a lot about those in previous sessions, but that net price calculator is going to be your best guide. So if there are schools that your students are saying, I really want to check this school out or these schools out, go to the net price calculator before you even step foot on campus and see if it's even a realistic option. Because as a couple of our guests mentioned, it's heartbreaking when students come in and say, I've applied, I've been accepted, but I can't afford it. And it happens every year. I've had multiple conversations already this spring with students, and it's just, you need to do the front end. So if you're a parent watching this, please be honest with your students about that budget talk. If you're a student watching this, please have that conversation with your parents. You can initiate it. And even if they're too, if they're maybe don't want to talk exact details, at least an idea of a budget. Let me go to the chat here and see, where do you find the net price calculator? You can just Google it. You can go to, so let's say I'll use Michigan State because that was one of our guests today. You can Google Michigan State net price calculator and it'll pop up. If you're on a school's website, every school has a search bar on their landing page, and you can type in net price calculator there too. There is a College Board net price calculator. College Board is very timely since it's testing week here and we're giving the SAT and the PSAT. College Board does have a net price calculator. I discourage students from using that if possible, just because every school does financial aid differently. And it's just, that's just the way that it is. They all take the FAFSA, and that's definitely step one. Step two might be that CSS profile, which is that secondary form that I mentioned. So your best bet is to always go directly to the source to find out what they're asking for. Anything else? And if you prefer to have a private conversation, I'm available. We can always do a phone call for any age parent. I'm happy to do that and just talk through some questions or comments, or an email if you prefer to talk a little bit more privately about maybe family situation or just things in general. I do like starting with that merit aid guide, especially if you're just like, gosh, we would just really like to know the schools that have merit aid. And in the book, some of them are mentioned, but those might be schools that aren't of interest to you, but I would go through it. I think it's on that merit aid chart, you'll see schools that actually don't report any merit aid given. And that is also telling. So maybe if you know we need merit aid in order to make this work, if you've had conversations with your student about merit aid is necessary, or a state school, often I hear parents tell me that, like, if it's the price of a state school or equivalent, that's great. So if you're interested in Ohio State University, which is going to be more than obviously a state school here in Illinois, but you can get a merit scholarship or qualify for financial aid in order to bring that down, then that's an opportunity too. But just kind of have an idea of that. And we talked about in terms of values and what is worth paying for. Maybe it's worth paying more for an honors college for your family. Maybe it's worth paying more for smaller class sizes or a higher 6-year graduation rate. These are all things to talk about, just to consider what every family thinks about in terms of values and where the ROI, how important that is to you. And every family is different. So I would encourage you, it's easy to want to talk, and it is great to talk with neighbors and get their advice too. But your student is different than their student. And I think that's something to keep in mind. And even your own children are different from one to another, depending on how many you have. So if there are no more questions, I know we're at an hour and a half, and I really appreciate everyone for hanging on. Those interviews, I did cut them, but they were such great information that I wanted to let them kind of run their course. But if nothing else, then I will stop the recording. And again, thank you so much for participating. I really enjoyed the book and putting these 3 sessions together for you. I think what's great is that these videos will live on our CCRC YouTube channel. So if you want to refer back to them or point anyone else in their direction, that would be great. So have a great rest of the week, and good luck to all of our students who are testing tomorrow.